Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the semifinals of CCSW here for Rainbow Six. I'm Brimstone, and I've got Azaraki and Red Cube here. How's it going, guys? This is the
going
first
pretty
time we're
good.
working together, Azaraki.
It is.
First time, yeah. And I
First
think
time working
you were
with both
saying
of you.
with Henry as well. So this will be nice and fun. But obviously, Henry was telling me how much he missed me just a second ago, and I'm flattered. I missed him as well, and
Of course.
we've literally missed working with Azaraki, so that's
Yes,
where
exactly.
he comes in as well. So we've
I
missed
managed to
him as well.
dodge you guys so far, but this time I couldn't do it.
He
No,
couldn't get out of
no.
this one. He couldn't get out of this one.
We zeroed in on him. We said, "We're working with us. It's happening."
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
but-
what happened, actually.
We've got an exciting day lined up for you here. We've got our two semifinal matches. They're going to be best of threes. We'll get the brackets up here in a moment for you, and we'll talk about the matches that you're going to be seeing. Of course, the first match of the day is going to be Artemis versus Queen YOLO Mid. This is going to be a really exciting one to start off with, but I won't talk about it too much. I'll tell you about the second match, which is going to be Victoria's Secret versus Disrupt Gaming. That'll be at hopefully 5:30 p.m. Eastern, give or take time, depending on how long it takes for the first match to go on. But let's get into this first match here. This is going to be, I think, I wouldn't say, not going to say the best match of the day, but the most interesting match of the day, because Artemis is, without a doubt, the best team coming into the weekend. And I'm sure if you look at the standings, you'll notice that they are 8-1, all but undefeated, with the last loss coming on the final week against Slaughterhouse. So maybe a bit of an asterisk beside that loss, and no slight to Slaughterhouse at all. It's just kind of odd against expectations. And Queen YOLO Mid, although they dropped to fourth, they've kind of been the almost league favorites throughout the year, despite a bit sloppier of a second half to their season. So this is shaping up to be a really interesting one. But our four teams are Artemis coming in at first, Victoria's Secret coming in at second, who will be going up, as we said, against Disrupt Gaming, Queen YOLO Mid at fourth, and then the other teams failing to make the playoffs here, but hopefully we'll see them back for next season, and we can hopefully get a new look as all these teams have improved upon the year. But let's talk about this first match, Artemis versus Queen YOLO Mid. I'll start with you, Azaraki. These are two teams with two different histories or different records throughout the season, but definitely high hopes on both of them. What can we expect from a match like this?
Yeah, so one thing that I do want to mention is that the loss that Artemis had to Slaughterhouse was on Clubhouse, and so maybe we might see that reflected in the pick ban a little bit. But as you said, they have already been locked in to the playoffs at that point, so we do have to take that with a grain of salt. Meanwhile, moving back to our matchup, Artemis versus Queen YOLO Mid, one of the strongest parts about Artemis is that they have a bunch of different players that can step up. We've seen Wolfie go off and carry games. We've seen Light do it. We've seen Madeline do it. You know, they're an entire team of players who can really come together, get the frags, help each other out. And I think I've seen a lot of promising communication from them as well. Queen YOLO Mid, on the other hand, you feel free.
No, go ahead. Continue. All you.
Well, Queen YOLO Mid has had a little bit of a rougher season in terms of their win-loss, but as these guys already pointed out, in their losses, they played really well. In their wins, they played really well. And so even though the record is 5-4, I think everyone really feels like they've performed a lot better than that over the course of the season.
I 100% agree. I think coming into this game, a lot of people might be even thinking this is the final. So you have Queen YOLO Mid going up against Artemis. Queen YOLO Mid throughout the entire season has been one of the favorites, like you said. And Artemis, they don't even need to be the favorites in your eyes. They are 8-1, could easily be 9-0. That last game, like you said, is kind of a grain of salt. You don't necessarily know what happened. But with that, I also kind of want to talk about another thing with Artemis, and it's the fact that VOD review for them is essentially useless because they haven't shown anything important in quite a while. And you can look back at those maybe first couple weeks and things like that and say, hey, we could look at these VODs, we can look at these strats, but they 100% have changed those quite a bit in the course of the season. So they don't have any recent VODs that show much, and their old VODs are just not applicable anymore. So it's going to be really hard for Queen Yolomid to come into this game doing their homework and being confident in their map picks and in their strats and trying to have counter strats, because Artemis just hasn't shown anything simply because they've been so good throughout the regular season. But the thing that also comes up is the fact that if we look at these rosters right now for Queen Yolomid, you can see somebody is missing and somebody prominent. That's going to be Fuya is off the board, and Marmalade is going to be playing in her place. This wasn't a sub. This wasn't a kind of just last minute thing. This was a direct trade. So Marmalade is coming in for Fuya. This is like a permanent roster change. And a lot of people are probably going to be saying, what? Why would they do that? But I kind of like this trade. And the reason why I like this trade, is because in terms of what these players bring to the table and their roles, they're almost exactly the same. Marmalade on Brain Dead or 8K was easily an MVP candidate. She couldn't make it to the playoffs. She got on a team that is now in playoffs, so she can definitely make a mark. The one thing that is going to be very interesting is the fact that you're coming into a game that is very, very important. You're playing with a slightly new team, and maybe there might be some miscommunications on the side of Queen Yolomid, but I really don't expect it. It should be very interesting nonetheless.
Before we push on, I just want to interrupt really quick. We'll just give you a complete rundown of the rosters. We've kind of said names staggered here and there. Of course, we have Artemis. They have Wolfie, Light, Madeline, Aruz, Swagmander. Cannot stress it enough, as both of you were saying. These are players that can all steal a game at any given moment. They've all done it, and I feel like I say it every week and I'm beating a dead horse, but here it is. That's the truth of the matter. Then Queen Yolomid, pretty much the same thing. We've got Bappers, Autumn May, Marmalade, Ashton, and Anna, all of which have done very well for them, but obviously with a few of those losses, they're actually 2 out of 6 in their last 6 games, so kind of a rougher second half. But we know that if there's one team that can disprove or go against the numbers, it is Queen Yolomid. But go ahead, you were saying something there, Azaraki.
Yeah, as we right before we transition, I do want to mention regarding this matchup and the fact that it's hard to prepare for Artemis. I feel like Queen Yolomid is one of those teams that can fight against that pretty well, because they're really good at playing this fast and loose style. They can adapt on the fly, and they can deal with strange strats being thrown at them or new strats. So especially with Marmalade on the roster, they have a little bit more of that as well. So I think this is one of the matchups that Queen Yolomid might actually be able to come out on top of.
Yeah, that I think Marmalade is huge for them. I mean, no disrespect to any player, but any player, and then you get to bring in Marmalade instead. There's few players in the league that you could say that you have a loss in that category.
Yeah, that you wouldn't. Yeah. There's not a lot of people you'd say you'd rather have than Marmalade. Marmalade was absolutely insane on 8K. And just like that, though, we are going to be moving into the map ban. So this is something we were talking about a little bit earlier today, which is the fact that we did see Artemis lose on Clubhouse. This was their only loss. Again, though, it was kind of like we don't necessarily know if it was a legit loss. So coming into this ban phase, do you expect Artemis to just get rid of Clubhouse? We've seen Clubhouse played so many times in CCSW. Do you think they're just going to say, get it out? There's too much information on Clubhouse. We do not want to play on Clubhouse.
Yeah, I think it was a very likely ban because, first of all, they lost on it. And again, we don't have all the information. Maybe they weren't super prepared for that match because they already locked in their playoff spot and it was the last game. But either way, that's definitely a point you want to consider. Second, most of the teams we've seen really like Clubhouse. So if there's a map that you don't really feel comfortable on and it's Clubhouse, well, that's a very clear target for the other teams in the league to basically focus that down and try to crack the armor.
Yeah, and just like that, we see the first 2 bans coming out. Artemis is going to get rid of Clubhouse. No surprises, to be honest. I think that's a really smart ban from them. They weren't the strongest on Clubhouse against Slaughterhouse, and like you said, it's been played so much. Everybody knows how to play on Clubhouse, especially in CCSW, so getting rid of it probably gives Artemis just a little bit of a boost. And also in terms of information that could be put onto Artemis, the most relevant information is their Clubhouse information, so they just get rid of it completely. First pick is going to be Cafe. We've seen Artemis on Cafe. I think the only team in CCS to play Cafe 3 times. So we've seen them on Cafe quite a bit, which means there's a lot of information on them. But the thing is, again, their VODs are essentially useless right now. They're probably going to be bringing a completely different look, as well as the fact they've been extremely convincing on Cafe. I think it was 7-1s, 7-2s. So it's definitely going to be a hard match for Queen Yolomid. But like you said, Queen Yolomid thrives in chaos, and Cafe is one of those maps that brews quite a bit of chaos.
Yeah, especially with how recent it's been updated. There are still so many things to figure out about Cafe that I think it's a very good pick. And now the next pick we should talk about is definitely Villa. because we have not seen very much Villa at all. I think it's only been like 1 or 2 times maybe in NA. So this is a map that is still pretty fresh. You know, a lot of the downstairs sites, or both of the downstairs sites, haven't really been tried and tested throughout tons of different strats like the upstairs sites have. So if any team can sort of figure out how to really lock down those first floor defenses, then they'll have a huge advantage coming into any sort of Villa map. So picking it first rotation, I guess only rotation here, but picking it for their pick instead of leaving it to be a decider shows that Queen Yola mid probably have some strats banked up for this map.
Yeah, I think it's those secondary bomb sites that are going to set teams apart on Villa. And
Absolutely.
we've seen it. Like, Villa's been the map where the normal bomb sites, you have the upstairs, people are fairly confident. Almost everybody's confident. But it is a defender-sided map, and the fact that we're seeing a lot of slip-ups on those secondary bomb sites is very, very alarming. But like you said, Queen Yolomin picking it instead of letting it go to the decider definitely shows that they're probably fairly confident in that map. But it looks like we could be getting into it here very, very shortly as all the players are in the lobby, and we are seeing some R's pop up into the chat. But going into a best of three, this is the first time we've seen a best of three in CCSW. What do you think that does to the mentality of these players?
It's definitely going to be new because we've talked about this a lot over the course of the entire season, but many of these teams got together for this league. You know, they haven't really played with each other. There are some exceptions, of course, but for the most part, that's been the case with a lot of these teams. So even after they have all of this experience with best of ones, best of threes is a completely different ballpark.
Yeah, absolutely. As well as the fact endurance plays a factor. We've seen, I don't think the grand finals is a best of five. If we saw a best of five, endurance is 100% a factor. You'll see teams kind of start to slip up on those last two maps, even sometimes on those third maps. But we are getting into the first map of CCS semi-finals. Artemis versus Queen Yolo mid into the ban phase on Cafe. Cafe ban phase is actually very interesting in my opinion because there's a lot of things that you can do that can completely dictate the way you play on Cafe. It's similar to Clubhouse where if you have a very kind of out of the ordinary ban, you'll have a completely different play style. And I think Cafe has opened the doors for that to happen, but we're seeing the IQ and Jackal off the board first. Not too surprising. The IQ is kind of a little bit questionable. You don't necessarily see an IQ ban too much. Jackal, you see Jackal banned almost every day of the week now.
An IQ ban definitely usually tells people that whatever team banned it, in this case it would be Queen Yola mid, they probably want to play some more Echo, some more Valk, and those sorts of things that IQ counters. So in terms of what they're going to ban, I'm going to guess it would be Maestro, because that's sort of the last high tier ban that's on there, aside from Mira. Actually going with a Mute, that's pretty interesting. We barely ever see Mute banned.
Yeah, so Artemis going with typical bans. You see the Jackal and the Mira off the board, and then you've seen Queen Yolo mid doing something somewhat different. IQ going off the board, like you said, it makes sense if you're using an Echo or Valkyrie. So probably Queen Yolo mid on defense here is going to rely on those intel ops, specifically those camera ops. And then we see the Mute ban. I don't exactly know what that is for. I don't really think, in my opinion, there's not really any site on Cafe where you really want a mute or you 100% need a mute. So I don't exactly know what it's for, but similar to Clubhouse, there's a couple situations where just getting rid of the mute almost secures a certain take. So I'm guessing that's probably what Queen Yolo mid is going to be setting up for, but we're just going to have to wait and see what that take is.
And the main thing that sticks out to me is that Mute's banned, but on the other hand, Kaid is not banned, or Bandit's not banned, so you still have a lot of options for hard breach denial. And I feel like if you're going to target one with a ban, it would be something like a Kaid or a Bandit. Bandit because the Bandit batteries you can trick really easily. It's a very common thing, everyone knows about it at this point. And Kaid because he can get hatches, he also has his own sort of trick, but Mute doesn't really have any of those specific specialties. Mute's main advantage is the fact that he can cover more area with his denial, and the fact that he can also deny information from drones. So between those things, I'm still not quite sure why on Cafe they decide to ban it, why it warrants a ban more than anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's, I think, a couple more operators that I'd rather just not have to deal with. Like you said, Echoes. I hate Echo. That's just one of those operators that is almost a comfort ban for many people. And the fact that they didn't go with an Echo ban, they didn't go with a Bandit ban, they didn't go with a Kaid or Maestro, but going with that Mute. We're just going to have to see how it plays out. But going into the very first action phase here, we see pretty typical setup for this upstairs defense. Nothing really out of the ordinary. There is no rotate. Actually, never mind. There is a rotate out of bathroom into the kitchen. I mean, the freezer area. But you do have Marmalade on the Jaeger. The new signing for Queen YOLO Mid on the deep roam downstairs in that mid floor. This is definitely going to waste quite a bit of time for Artemis if they want to kind of perform an effective push on this upstairs site.
And we definitely want to keep an eye out on possible runouts too, because we saw the IQ ban, which means they're either going to put a lot of emphasis on Valkyrie or Echo. Since they didn't take an Echo at all, Valkyrie's on the board. This is a great map to put cameras outside and run out on, so potentially going to see some late round runouts to catch people on their repels or anything like that. But we do already see someone dropping, and Bappers will take the head off immediately. Really good sound cues there, and just a beautiful headshot.
Yeah, and I'm unfortunately running into a couple technical difficulties where I can't see the game, but just from what you said, I'm guessing that headshot was fairly clean. So I'm just going to let this go back to you for now because I have no idea what is happening with the game.
Bappers got another headshot on someone who dropped down the hatch onto red stairs. So that's 2 headshots in a row from the exact same location. Artemis definitely don't want to keep peeking that one, and we see a little bit of a flush out here as concussion grenades go out. Autumn May is holed up in piano. Not really going to be able to get the kill, though, as Light takes her out. Bappers will peek around the corner, get another headshot, but it's traded out by Light. Headshots all across the board, and now we're down to a 2v3, as so far, Wolfie is one of the few people left on her team, and they still have quite a ways to go. They don't have a lot of map control. But they do have a minute left, so that is certainly enough time to execute.
Yeah, a minute left. You can definitely do quite a bit with it. I'm still having some technical issues, so I don't exactly know what is going on. But, you know, this is North America. We see this all the time. No one should be surprised at this point. So, again, I'm just going to hand it right back to you, Azaraki, because I'm in the dark right now.
Whew, as soon as you say that, Wolfie peeks around the corner and gets her head taken off by Ashton playing on the stairs. And that is the power of the Valkyrie. MPX has such low recoil, you can get headshots all over the place with that, even though it doesn't do a lot of damage, and so that means Artemis is going to lose the first round to Queen YOLO Mid. We didn't see a lot of runouts like I was predicting. I don't think we actually saw any, but overall, QIM just got really good picks, and Artemis, I'm kind of surprised at the way they played that round. It's not really indicative of what we've seen from Artemis in the past. You know, they had 3 people 3 separate times drop down the hatch to red stairs. All 3 of them got their heads shot off. And it was only the 4th person who dropped down fast enough to get the refrag who finally took out Bappers. And you can't let that happen. That's more than half your team dying to the exact same angle.
And a good start on your map is something you really, really want, even if it's just the first round, the first couple rounds especially. But the fact that Artemis, this is their map, they went into that first round and kind of just got sat on, it's going to do a little bit of numbers to their confidence. Yes, it's only 1 round, and they're probably going to be able to bounce back. We've seen them bounce back from situations like this before, but something that we haven't seen from Artemis is a game that actually goes the distance and is meaningful. We saw a game against Victoria's Secret that did go the distance. It was the only team to put Artemis into overtime, but so far, I really don't think Artemis has been tested in the long run. In a game where this is their map and they're already losing the first round on, yes, it is a defender-sided map, but still they lost the first round on their map fairly convincingly. It's a little bit alarming, and this could shape up to be one of those long games where it's back and forth, and we just haven't seen that tested for Artemis as of yet.
And that sort of idea gets even more exacerbated when we think of the fact that this is the first best of 3 that these teams will be fighting in this league. So endurance is absolutely going to play a factor, and if you get off to the wrong start, it can be even harder to get back into it. So hopefully we're going to see Artemis pull themselves back and find their footing here on their second attack. The site is in the 2nd floor, and looks like Light is already in the building. They're clearing out piano, very standard play for this sort of map. You want to go top down. And yeah, piano's given up pretty much for free. Marmalade, I actually remember Marmalade playing in Freezer before, going for an incredibly late flank that actually worked wonders. I think she got 3 kills the last time she pulled this strat off. So let's see if they decide to check in here. They just need 1 drone to fly in there and drone it out. But they're actually going to start firing back and forth. Swag kills Animosity on the other side of the map, but Marmalade is pushed out of this position. So no shenanigans this time around.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm still not being able to see this great game as it sounds like it's going very, very well. But did you say Marmalade did die, or did she not die, or is she still chilling?
She didn't die. She got pushed out, so she actually rotated back downstairs. Lost most of her health in the process, but for the most part, I think the most significant part of that is the fact that she wasn't allowed to play that super late flank that she did a couple weeks ago. And that means that Artemis has the top floor completely cleared out, and they don't need to worry. As long as they hold their angles, they don't need to worry about any sort of deep flank like that other time.
Yeah, and just like that, I am finally back. I don't know exactly where I'm resynced, but I at least can see the game, and we can see that Maestro is going to be the first defender off the board. That's a little bit alarming. You don't necessarily want your Maestro to be the first one dead simply because he is one of those hard ankles. But he's one of those hard anchors, and he can definitely help you in the later half of this round. But we do see Swag there in the train areas, caught in a bit of a kind of in between here. Artemay is able to find a kill onto Light. That's going to be Zofia off the board. As Ashton the Legion is wasting so much time right now, as there's only 30 seconds left, and the attack from Artemis just hasn't really formed into anything.
And the reading room, still no progress made on directly into sight, and the defenders are fighting back tooth and nail, and Bappers is waiting for just a really late flank here on the stairs. I don't think anyone knows she's there. Automay is going to get one with the smoke canister. Automay will peek around, try to get a second, but Ashton able to cover the back. Diffuser starts going down, but it's a fake, and it's not going to work as Automay takes one down. Marmalade gets a second one off the back of that, and Queen YOLO mid with their second round in the row, pretty much dismantling Artemis as soon as they tried to execute.
This is alarming. I am not going to lie. This is not at all what I expected the start to be for Artemis, because so far from them, what we've seen this entire season has been dominant play throughout the entire game. This is their map. They are down 2-0, and both of the rounds have been severely one-sided. That is not a start you want to be on at all. It turns into kind of this snowball effect where it just starts getting harder and harder and harder to come back, because yes, there's the round count that's going to be against you, but also the confidence and the momentum that we're seeing on the side of Queen YOLO mid, that's going to be very, very hard to stop. We've seen in the past, Queen YOLO mid is one of those teams that just dwell in that type of environment where there's chaos, where there's a lot happening, and they just have all this energy building up where they can make explosive plays. And this is shaping up to be a situation like that, and Artemis might not have an answer.
And Artemis, it's definitely strange seeing Artemis play like this, because Queen YOLO mid, they've been playing well. They've been winning their gunfights. But Artemis just haven't really been adapting to any of these sort of rotations or strategies. Artemis, they flushed out Marmalade. They got a pick onto Animosity. And then they sort of sat tight. They didn't use the map control they had to get extra pressure on the site. You know, they had the entire third floor cleared out. They even shot some holes into the floor, into reading room, and could have used those angles, but maybe they just weren't quite the right angles, or they had no one playing there. But when it came time to execute, they didn't seem like they had a plan. They had Thermite going in to reading, planting behind the desk, but there was only one person watching him, and that one person died pretty much immediately. Yeah. So they're not really covering each other as much as I'd like to see, especially from a team like Artemis, who, as we talked about, they're 8-1. They've lost a single match, and it was their last match when pretty much their seeding, their standing was locked in. They were first no matter what they did for that last match, so it's really tough to see.
Yeah, and something we also have to credit is the fact Ashton on this Legion has wasted so much time, and it looks like she's shaping up to do the exact same thing again. We see just sitting here in this bar area is a really nice spot to play, but Light is able to find two. And just like that, it is a trade, but it's also a trade that works in favor of the attack, as they have their first, I think, in a while, a significant, well, not necessarily a significant, but a good man advantage early on. And what a shot there from Light, taking Automay's head off. It's going to be a 4v2, and now this is looking like the Artemis we love to see, as Castle and the Maestro are the last two left alive, and Light is trying to make her presence known once again, is going to land a couple shots on the Maestro, but is going to be getting downed and finished off from Animosity, so making it a 3v2, could be easily a 2v2, as Animosity is able to find one onto Madeline, but Swag comes in for the refrag immediately, and Artemis, in an explosive and quick fashion, are able to bring a round back and slow down the train that was Queen YOLO mid.
Yeah, Artemis finally looked like they had a bit of a specific plan in order to attack this site. the last couple rounds they've been playing sort of a standard game, starting with the repels, going to the top floor, clearing that out and all, but it just hasn't really been working for them so far. So this round they decided to basically toss all of that out the window, go for an attack that relied solely on the first floor, and they just powered through it. Light went in, got 2 frags immediately, forced all of the roamers to try to rotate back to site, and those roamers got picked off by the rest of the team. Then Light continued pushing in and was able to be quite a distraction for Animosity, who was getting flashbanged, she was getting concussed, there was everything going on around her. So even though she picked up the 1 kill, there's just so much going on that she got refragged right after that. So overall, I like that change of strategy by Artemis and deciding to play something that's a little bit substandard.
Yeah, it wasn't just a change of strategy either. It was a change of pace completely from Artemis. We saw, I think going through the head of Artemis was the fact, hey, the cost of doing nothing is far too expensive. And in those first 2 rounds, we did a lot of nothing. We were just waddling around, trying to clear out certain areas that, yes, it's good to clear out, but is it really essential? Probably not. And that's just not their play style. They like to play fast paced. They like to be in your face. And that's exactly what they did in round number 3. They got right into the face of Queen Yellow mid, and it worked wonders. They got to plant that seed and make it their tree. They got to kind of capitalize on that play style, and they don't want to stray too far away from it, because we've seen in those first 2 rounds when they stray away from that play style and they're a little bit too constricted and their strat isn't as loose as you'd like it to be, they don't work very well. So I'm hoping after that round, after that very convincing round, Artemis recognized, hey guys, we just need to play a little bit more loose. Let's be a little bit more like ourselves, and that's not a good start. As Marmalade once again on this Jaeger on the deep roam is able to find 1 onto the Ash, just sprinting in. It's going to be swag off the board. That is a very, very hurtful kill on the side of Artemis, because that is your entry fragger who just got absolutely shut down immediately.
Yeah, so that one was a little bit too loose, right? We want to see more fast and loose style from them, but to rush in without... I can't imagine any of that was droned out, because we had 1 person sitting in dining, Marmalade was here in reading room. Those are 2 targets that you could have droned out, and you weren't careful whatsoever, so they clearly didn't have that droned. But meanwhile, Bapper's going to be running out. That's what I actually mentioned the very first round, but we haven't seen it until now. But it's definitely going to be fruitful as they take out the Twitch, one of the best guns in the game, off the board.
Yeah, and that's just kind of lack of awareness. You probably want to have a Claymore there, or just know that somebody is probably going to run out. You didn't see the first 2 rounds, which probably made Wolfie just a little bit more comfortable, but I mean, being comfortable in Siege is not good, and right now Artemis aren't comfortable at all, as we're seeing Arus is the last one standing in a 1v4. Smoke is the only defender off the board for this defense. There's a minute 30 to work with, so Arus could definitely do something with this time, but it does not matter, as Bappers is able to shut it down, and Queen Yellow mid, after losing a pretty one-sided and pretty aggressive attack last time around, they go back upstairs to their comfort pick and say, you know what, let's just get that round back, and now have secured the draw going into the half.
Yeah, it seems like Queen Yola mid on their defenses have been pretty confident. Even in their defense on the first floor, they weren't really flustered. They didn't lose that round because they were flustered. They lost because Artemis just popped off. Their entire team started getting frags. They played their fast and loose style, but Queen Yolo mid, they actually had the right idea, right? They had Ashton playing for time, trying to make sure that she denied as much space as possible. The rest of the team, as soon as those first 2 kills happened, they started rotating down, but they just couldn't win the gunfights against Artemis. So what that tells me is that this match, it's less that Queen Yola mid wasn't prepared for that downstairs site. I think they're prepared for every site on this map, but Artemis just haven't really had success attacking the upstairs sites, and we're actually going all the way back down to the kitchen site, which is the one Queen Yola mid lost. So that actually just reinforces my point that they feel pretty confident on this site too, even though the reading room's open.
Yeah, and the thing is the setup on this site was very typical, and it looked very good from Queen Yellow mid. Like you said, you had the Legion playing on that offsite anchor, wasting time. It just came down to a issue of gunfights. Are you going to win your gunfights, or are you going to lose your gunfights? And if the game turns into that, the game turns into a game of who's going to win their gunfights, I'm going to put my money on Queen Yellow mid, simply due to the fact that everybody knows how good mechanically the players are on Queen Yellow mid. Artemis, they're right there with them, but I think Queen Yellow mid just have that edge, and that could easily push them into a winning position like they are now. But Ashton is actually going to be playing in a slightly different location, so the hold is a little bit different as Light is struggling to hit that camera. Finally gets it, but just like that, we are seeing the Legion in that kind of like hallway area leading up into the site. This is completely opposite of where the Legion played later on, and I think this is going to adjust to the push that Artemis, I think, well, actually Queen Yolomid is what is expecting from Artemis, because we see the Artemis push is also fairly different. Instead of pushing from that east side, they're actually going to be pushing from the complete west side. So this was a really good, I think, just game plan change from the side of Queen Yolomid, because it completely counters the push that we're seeing set up from Artemis.
And we already see pretty much all of the roamers have rotated back over here towards site because they realize that Artemis isn't going to let them get any pickoffs. They're not going upstairs at all. They're holding their angles downstairs. They're attacking from this angle where they don't need to worry about being flanked pretty much at all. So the roamers, they have no real reason to roam. So I really like that adaptation to pull all the roamers back to site. However, Light will get the first frag onto Bappers as she tries to rotate within the site. And Animosity holding a really long angle. This is a good spot for her. They might be able to get a kill here, but Wolfie actually takes out Autumn, and that was the person covering Animosity's back. Now she has to look every direction, and Light's going to take her head off. One more kill goes by the way of Artemis, and now Marmalade is the only one left. We talked about Marmalade being a crazy good player, a really strong fragger, but a 1v5 is quite a tall order.
Yeah, this is going to be very, very tough for Marmalade. And also the diffuser down. So not only is it a clutch situation where you have so many bodies against you, but you also have time against you. So it's basically a 6-man situation. And just like the first time around on Kitchen, Artemis are able to win it out again. So we're seeing Queen Yolomid. They are fairly comfortable on this site as they have gone to it multiple times, but they're just not playing it as well as they are the top sites. Maybe it's actually the complete opposite. Maybe Artemis is just attacking better on that downstairs site, but it looks like we are going to be having a rehost. I don't exactly know what the issue is, but rehost is getting called from Artemis, and we are going to be backing out of the game. And I think that means I don't exactly know how long this rehost is going to take, but we could potentially see Brimstone coming back into the picture, but we are just going to have to wait and see. Coming out of this rehost, though, this is actually a really interesting time to have a rehost, because this is also kind of a spot where you would have maybe a tactical timeout because you are one round away from going into the half. How do you think this is going to affect the mindset and what the players are going to be bringing back in after this rehost, Azaraki?
I actually think this rehost won't end up affecting things too much because overall we haven't seen momentum play a huge factor in these matches or in these rounds so far. I think the biggest factor has been the sort of options that Artemis have to attack the site. We see Queen Yolomid, we've talked about them being prepared for all 3 bomb sites, and they set up pretty well, they rotate pretty well. I think the main difference is that when they go to the kitchen site, when they're on the first floor, Artemis have a very easy and very clear avenue into the building. When it comes to any other site, they're forced to go through rappels, they're forced to drop hatches, they're forced to jump through windows on the top floor, and I think that sort of splits them up too much. It like clears their focus. It widens their focus, and they're not allowed to play that really fast hammer style that they were whenever it's a first floor defense. And I think that is the main thing we're seeing so far on their attack.
Absolutely. As we bring Brimstone back.
Yeah. Hey, well, I was supposed to say welcome back. No, welcome me back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you think it was an interesting choice given that the Queen Yolomid, they had a successful defense on Cocktail, successful defense on Reading, then they went and lost a round to Kitchen, went back to Cocktail, won it, but then they go back to Kitchen? Is it not odd to kind of put a site back in your rotation that you had just lost at 2 rounds ago, or did they maybe want to take momentum by coming back and securing that one? What's the thought process there, do you think?
I think the thing that me and Azaraki were talking about is the fact that Queen Yolomid seems fairly confident on Kitchen. Mm-hmm. They have a pretty decent setup. It looks like they had a pretty good answer for both of the attacks from Artemis. It's just the fact that I think Artemis attacking Kitchen looks a lot better than when they're attacking Bar or when they're attacking Reading. So I don't necessarily know if it's a problem for Queen Yolomid in terms of are they prepared for that site. I think it's rather a problem in the fact that Artemis is just a little bit more prepared to attack that site. And now that they've gone to it twice, I think they recognize that and probably aren't going to get stubborn and go there again. And you're going to probably see a Kitchen or Bar kind of come back into play.
Do you think
not Kitchen, my fault. Bar or Reading come back into play.
Do you think that if Artemis is able to come back and get that win to make it 3-3, do you think that swings the entire match in the favor of Artemis? Or do you think Queen Yolomid still has a shot at that point?
It's going to be tough because we haven't really seen an attacking example in this matchup yet. So when the sides switch, given how the teams are playing so far, I think Queen Yola mid might actually still be in the running to take this. Because I think, again, we watched Artemis's attacks fall apart when they're not attacking the first floor. Again, I think that's because the first floor is a lot easier to get into, so you can set up your positions without really worrying whatsoever. Meanwhile, Queen Yola mid, I don't think they're going to suffer from that problem. I think Queen Yola mid are going to be able to play down the hatches, they're going to be able to play the second and third floor windows, and one of the main things that I think is blocking Artemis from having success entering into the top and second floor is that they haven't really been using a lot of their utility to gain ground. It's sort of been one or two people jumping in, rushing in, trying to take the one-on-one fights, whereas Queen Yola mid, I think I have more confidence in them using their utility. So I think even if Artemis were to clean up this next round and take it 3-3, I think Queen Yola mid probably still wins the map.
Yeah, as well as the fact this is a defender-sided map, so the fact that we're seeing Queen Yola mid getting a couple rounds on defense, it could just be the complete opposite, and Artemis now going back onto defense after the half switch. That could be the advantage they need. But like you said, just the playstyle from Queen Yola mid has been looking just a little bit better than Artemis in terms of what could happen with Queen Yola mid on attack. But we are back into the game, round number 6, one more round before we go into that side switch. And this is kind of this point in a game when things start to get very, very interesting and hypotheticals are being thrown up in the air and you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. But something we do know that is going to happen is the fact that we're not going to be seeing a kitchen defense again, as the side of Queen Yola mid is opting to go back for reading. Reading was a very, very convincing win for Queen Yola mid the first time around. It's going to be interesting to see if they change anything or if Artemis, I think Artemis is the one we have to look at here. They need to change something going on to this attack because the first time around on this site, it was not convincing whatsoever. And it was kind of putting them out of their misery because it just did not look good for them.
Yeah, and the change I want to see, I think I sort of hinted at it before, but I want to see them use more of their utility to get into the building. Looking at what they don't have any smokes, but the concussion grenades, we haven't really seen them play too much of a factor in the last couple of rounds. This time they have a Buck and an Ash, so potentially more options to go through Hard Breach to play the vertical game. And I think the vertical game is going to be very strong, especially on this site, where if you take control of the third floor, and the last time we actually saw Queen Yola mid defend here, they sort of gave up the third floor pretty easily, but they still won. So I think with this addition of they have 3 soft breachers this time. I think it's 2 more than the first time, but overall, I think that's something that is an adaptation that Artemis is making that might actually give them the round. In terms of the way this site's being set up, it seems like Queen Yola mid are going to put more pressure on the third floor, so they're not just going to give it up for free this time either.
Yeah, so it looks like there's a lot more pressure and there's a lot more presence upstairs from the defenders, but there's also a lot of attackers that can answer that presence a little bit better. You have the Buck, and Buck's main job is just to make the defenders feel as uncomfortable as possible from holes either made below or above. And the fact that Buck is in play, and if Artemis gets control of upstairs, Bappers is so close to getting the first kill there. But if Artemis gets control of upstairs in a fairly timely manner, this round should be 100% in their favor, because up top control on a site like this is so valuable because it can just push everybody out of their kind of comfortable positions, and that is 100% what you want to do as an attacker. But we're just going to have to see how quick and how expedited this push from Artemis is, because as of right now, it looks like it's stalling out just a bit as they are 1 minute in and there's not really any advances onto that upstairs push.
And Wolfie almost spots someone, but whoever it was decides to back off at the very last second before it's being seen. But here we actually see a lot more utility as Bappers is pushed into Cigar. I don't know if they know if she's here, but she is actually going to be able to back all the way off. Peek around the corner again, but no, Wolfie is waiting there. The same angle as before, headshot takes out Bappers, and that was one of the keys to the first round. And right after that, they're going to start falling like flies as Animosity takes one back in their favor, however. But Artemis is still in pretty good control. They have 2 soft breachers left. They have the defuser in their grasp. 1 minute, 20 seconds left. This is going pretty well for them, but Animosity is going to be able to take out Wolfie and even it up. Suddenly, it's not looking so good. They need to flush out this Maestro. They can't let Maestro play these long angles over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's a gunfight you really want Wolfie to win if you're on Artemis, and you kind of actually wanted her to be a little bit more patient because we do see the Thermite setting up into a kind of crossfire position where killing this, just like that, killing that Maestro is going to be a lot easier. In my opinion, I think being a little bit more patient in that situation would have been better for Wolfie, but it doesn't necessarily matter as it is a 3v1 and Ashton is the last one alive on that Legion. Legion is a fairly good clutch operator, has that T5 SMG, which is a really good gun, as well as the fact you have those Legion mines all over, can provide very valuable intel in a clutch situation like this. But the problem is 30 seconds left with a 3v1 upstairs control and basically mid-floor control. That's a lot of time to work with and also a lot of ground to work with if you are the attacking team. And it's going to be very hard for Legion to kind of take that back. We need to see Artemis. They should really try to get this plant down because right now time is still in favor of the Legion. Just as I said that Madeline is going to be getting that plant down. It looks like it is going to stick as well. So it's going to be a retake situation for the Legion here. You see Ashton just sprinting right back into the room. And we are going to see the Thermite not going to be able to land the shots. Finds it prone, and that's a nice shot as... Ashton just lets it sing into the wall. I don't exactly know what happened there, but could potentially go for the disable here, but you do have Swag sitting on this window, is going to be able to find the easy kill. Misses the first couple shots, but it does not matter. And just like that, Artemis going 3-3 into the half, and now on a defender-sided map, you could say they have the advantage.
And one thing that I really like seeing from that is whoever decided to make the call on Artemis to play the extra ventilation hatch at the very top of the building, the one that took Bappers out. Because as I mentioned before, Bappers during the first round, there were 3 people who dropped red stairs. They all died to a headshot from Bappers playing this exact same angle. This time, whoever made the call to say, hey, someone open up this other hatch, make sure we hold this angle, make sure Bappers can't rotate around and play that same way, that was huge. That opened up the entire round for them. That allowed the entire team of Artemis to get into the building. They dropped red hatch, and from there they just ended up taking the round down. The only resistance they met really was the Maestro, and so whoever made that call, kudos.
Yeah, and we've kind of talked about this just quite a bit actually so far, and I actually want to go into the numbers just a little bit, which is the fact Cafe is the most defender-sided map right behind Villa. So we have Cafe and then Villa. So we have 2 very defender-sided maps in this best of 3. And the exact numbers for Cafe sitting 100%. This is literally, I've got these exact statistics yesterday. So the Cafe attacking side wins 42.89% of the time. And then the defending side wins 57.11% of the time. That is a very, very, very one-sided difference when you look at all the other maps. You have Coastline, which is basically 50-50. You have Border, which is as close as you could get to 50-50. And then you have Cafe, which is very, very one-sided. And the fact that maybe Artemis is starting to pick it up here because they did just win 2 rounds in a row, and they're now on the defending side, so they have that advantage. They could definitely capitalize on that and take this map back.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And again, a lot of it comes down to how comfortable Queen Yola mid are on their attacks. So far, we have a defense that's going to center around the top floor once again. This seems to be both of these teams' favorite site to defend. So we'll see how they manage to do it. So far, not too much drone game out from Queen Yola mid. I sort of want to see more of that before they try to enter the site or anything, because there are a lot of positions that Artemis are playing that I don't necessarily want to play are substandard, but just like this, seeing Swag right behind Cigar with a peephole, you know, there are a lot of punishable mistakes, and there comes a drone. I don't want to say mistakes, but punishable positions if you're on top of your drone game. And they actually expend a couple of them trying to flush her out, but they won't be able to do it. Swag even just rotates right out. Really good play by her.
That was just unfortunate timing, I also think, for Autumn May, because if she just got the call that Swag did rotate out, that would have been a perfect opportunity. But talk about perfect opportunity, Swag is able to light up one, but unfortunately can't get the kill on both. So it's going to be an immediate trade there. It's going to be a castle for a Thermite, but what a shot there from Light. He's able to find one of Bappers and finds 2 on Animosity. And just like that, it's going to be a double kill. Going for the run out, could go for 3, but it gets shut down from Marmalade. So Light on the heater gets cooled down from Marmalade, but it is still a 3v2 situation. And you have a Smoke, a Mozzie with a C4, and a Valkyrie with a C4 on the board. This is looking very, very good for Artemis.
And one thing that we definitely want to point out about Artemis too is that we mentioned before the game that they have so many different players that can step up. This game, we've seen Light take entire rounds off of her gameplay. It's been incredible to see, and this round is no different. That was an amazing play, and even though she got killed at the end, she still made it more than worth it. And at this point, the attackers are on the back foot. Marmalade barely has any health left. They have 45 seconds. They do have the diffuser, so that's a good point for them, but overall, they just don't know where these defender positions are. All their drones have been shot. Wolfie actually trades with Ashton. That's not what you want to see when you're the attacker side here, as it brings you down to a 1-on-2. Castle Barricade is actually directly in the way. She does still have a lifeline if she decides to use it, but Marmalade is actually... Oh yeah, we're gonna see the lifeline. Ooh. Yeah, when you're this low, utility... Every bit of utility is super important, and having one caught out, and she's not going to be able to turn the corner and see Madeline. That's a headshot, and Artemis takes their first defensive round. Looking good so far.
Yeah, that was a really nice round from Artemis, and it's kind of on the back of Light. Light able to find 2 kills, bringing the Zofia on the window down to about 20 health. I mean, that Zofia trips over her shoelaces, she is going to be dead. And it was just all around a really good round from Light, and like you said, we have seen this before in this game. We saw 2 rounds prior on attack, Light on Zofia getting the 3K. So I think racked up, counting the rehost, I think right now Light's at around 9-10 kills, which is extremely impressive. You have 8 rounds, so that means you're at least getting a kill per round and then some. So very, very good play from Light, and now she has been promoted to Doc. So I'm expecting she gets a couple more kills here, because, I mean, everybody knows just how good Doc is. But now we are going to be going to, obviously, a different site, considering Artemis did win that last site. Kitchen was something Queen YOLO mid struggled with. They looked comfortable on it, but Artemis just knew how to attack it. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how Artemis decides to defend it, and if the same applies in the round, side switch. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, there's definitely a back and forth when it comes to this site that's been showcased so far in this very map. We've seen Artemis, they were able to attack from both directions of the map, but they never really put emphasis on any floor other than the first floor. I think there was maybe one player in one of the times that they attacked this site where they were on anywhere but the first floor. So we'll see what Queen YOLO mid decide to do, if they decide to take it a little more vertically. I think with their lineup, it doesn't really seem like they're going to. You know, they have the Nomad who can watch the stairs by herself, and they don't really need to worry about those flankers.
Yeah, we saw the push from Artemis on this site was extremely horizontal. There was almost 0 vertical control, but we are seeing on the Queen YOLO mid side of things, they have the Nomad, so potentially if you do go upstairs, you can have somebody watching your flank, as well as the fact you have a sledge. So going upstairs, you can just open up and do some remodeling on the downstairs part of things. As we are going to be seeing, I think it is the Nomad. Well, first kill is actually going to go in favor of the attacking team of Queen YOLO mid. Takes down Animosity. I mean, my fault. It's going to be Light that gets taken down from Animosity, and it's going to be immediately responded with Wolfie finding the kill onto Automay. So a Doc for a Nomad, in terms of utility, the defenders definitely won that one out, but you also just love that ACOG on Doc. Unfortunately, you don't have that anymore, as Marmalade is pushing up these white stairs, waiting for that defender to come peeking around the corner. This is a situation where you just kind of want the defender to rotate back and not get too aggressive, because that gunfight you are not going to win whatsoever. And it looks like that's exactly what the Valkyrie is going to be doing, rotating back to maybe that red stairs area. But Animosity is able to find 2, and that's going to be Swag off the board. So a Jaeger and your Doc off the board, 2 very valuable guns. Not a lot of utility, but in terms of just firepower, that hurts just a bit for Artemis.
And Marmalade, ooh, actually we see Madeline all the way over on the lobby stairs, but she's not going to be able to trade anything, just losing a bit of health. And even just a little bit of health is quite important when you're in this sort of situation, already 1 person down. And the Thermite actually rotated all the way over here, and Animosity is going to push in with the distraction of the exothermic charge, pushing in, but Bappers actually takes out Animosity. I don't know if there was anyone even behind her for any sort of crossfire to happen, so I think that was just a straight-up misplay. Meanwhile, Madeline actually takes out Bappers. Oh no, that might spell disaster. All starting with the team kill, as we're down to a 2v2. Wolfie and Madeline still on site. They're both in pretty good positions as well, and the attackers don't really know where they are. I don't think they have the drone gain ready either, but they do have the diffuser, and Ashton gets a headshot through the wall onto Wolfie. Madeline trades it back with a headshot of her own, and now we're down to a 1v1, and Madeline is going to be able to take it with yet another headshot. Beautiful play by her, and the MPX just like butter.
That was impressive from Artemis. They looked a lot more, I think, intact than Queen Yolomid did on this site, but you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt because that team kill really, really hurts. It turned a situation where it was a 3v2 into a 2v2. No, it turned a situation into a 4v2 into a 3v2, and then Madeline gets a kill making it a 2v2. And it's just everything started falling apart right after that team kill took place, and it just Bappers, I don't exactly know what happened. It just kind of seemed like it was out of nowhere that team kill came out. And that's probably what you could draw this round up to. And that's what gave Artemis the win, as well as the fact Madeline, impressive solo play and individual skill. Her team was basically falling apart, but she stood strong and was able to clutch up the round and was very impressive for Artemis. And just like that, that's going to be the biggest lead of the day for Artemis with 2 rounds towards them. We saw Queen Yolomid with a 2-round lead at the very early goings of this match. It quickly went right back into a draw situation, but now you're in that situation. The rounds are starting to get closer and closer to match point because one more round here for Artemis, and they're just one step away from taking map 1 of the semifinals and moving on to Villa. So the pressure is surely mounting for Queen Yolomid. They need to perform here.
And that's sort of the worst case scenario for a team kill as well. You were ahead, I think it was 4-2.
Yeah.
So you sort of brought that advantage way down. Not only that, but you ended up losing the round. So like if you team kill someone and you still win the round, it's like, oh, we can laugh it off. It's all good. We still won the round. But if you lose the round from a very strong advantage, a 4v2 advantage, due to a team kill, that's got to be racking their mentalities. And it's going to take quite a bit for a player to sort of forgive that and basically say, even though you shot me and we lost the round because of it, let's just still work past it. And oh, Marmalade taking out Light at the very beginning, who tried to go for a very aggressive spawn peek.
It's a little bit questionable from Light. I actually don't exactly know how she got shot because it looked like she was behind the wall. But just losing your dock that early on is kind of a situation that we saw last time around. The only reason Artemis won that could easily be the TK and also really great individual skill. And you can't be just gifting bodies and gifting kills to the attacking team. Because now, after that round that we just saw, I'm 100% positive that Queen Yolomid does not want to give up an advantage like that again. They're going to do their best to secure this man advantage to the very end of the round. Because, you know, if you have a man advantage at the end of the round, every team is basically undefeated in that situation. And we're seeing kind of just a little bit of an aggressive play and maybe a confident play there from Light, but I don't think this was the best situation for that. There's obviously certain scenarios and certain spots that you want to be aggressive and you want to be confident in your play, and I think that was just kind of a questionable play from Light because it does put their team at a disadvantage very early on. It was just the fact it pushes Wolfie into a situation where she's basically one against the world and doesn't have any support from the dock that would typically be there, and she is going to die. So it's going to be a 3v5, and basically all the assets you want as an attacking team to push this site upstairs from the upstairs is 100% in the attacker's control because everybody is now rotating back to that mid floor.
Yeah, and so far the top floor, as you said, completely in control right now of Queen Yolomid after a couple of really nice picks. And I really like the coordination that they had to basically flush out the Mozzie back there because they droned it out. They used the impact grenade from Marmalade to break open the desk and had the rest of the team shoot through it. It was good play, and one of the most important things about that is that they got that kill basically just with their utility. They didn't have to risk an aggressive peek. They didn't have to risk a heads-up gunfight. Nobody put themselves in a position where Wolfie could have potentially refragged or gotten a headshot or anything like that. So I really like that sort of patient style of play, focusing on the utility, and that means that Queen Yolomid are in total control even more now as we're at a 5v2. One more kill going to Bappers, and now with 2 left on site, make that 1 as the vertical control is just so good for Queen Yolomid. Swag is the only one left in a 1v5. The diffuser's going down. She has the element of surprise for now, but walks and turns at the absolute most unfortunate time as Autumn May cleans up that frag.
Yeah, that's a flawless round for Queen Yolomid. And in the game of Siege, you have to have calculated aggression. You need to know when to be aggressive and you need to know when to be passive. And unfortunately, I think for Artemis especially, I don't want to point fingers, but for Light in the early goings there, those calculations were wrong. That was not a smart play in that situation. getting that pick early on would have been helpful, but I think in a 5v5 situation on that reading site, the defenders should win it out. You don't need that extra pick in that situation. Yes, it's helpful, but if you just play your game, play your hold properly, and just work your angles inside the building correctly, you should be able to win that 9 times out of 10 because it's a defender-sided map on a fairly viable site. So a little bit unfortunate for Artemis there, but really good round from Queen Yolamid. Completely flawless from them. But now we are going back up to, I guess we could call it Mr. Old Reliable for these teams. This site has been very, very good for all the defending. Every time there's a defender on this site, it's been very comfortable for that defending team. So this is an old reliable site, so you're kind of expecting maybe Artemis takes this to match point here just based on round history. But Queen Yolamid, after that flawless round and after a kind of sketchy round the time before that, I think they're maybe starting to kind of get their mojo back and could easily come out and tie this game up here.
Yeah, and with the layout of the site in particular makes it so that it does seem very defender-sided. It's hard for the attackers to properly get inside, get to the top floor, because you have staircases that are pretty open. There are a lot of angles where as soon as you go up the staircase, you are under fire from any of the possible angles. The rappels are all in places where one person can hold down multiple different windows. You know, there aren't as many options for the attackers on this site than there are the other sides of this map, and I think that's part of the reason why we've seen that sort of comfort on the defense across all of these rounds. And so looking toward this new round, let's see if there's any sort of strangeness going on. We still haven't seen an Echo today at all, despite the fact that IQ is banned. But on the other hand, we've only seen, I think, 2 successful plants so far. The rest of the map has been very aggressive. Most of the teams have been just full fragging each other more than anything.
Yeah, and when you look at that aggressive play style, you'd much rather have a Valkyrie because you could have runouts and you can have kind of these roaming plays than an Echo, where Echo more relies on, hey, we have a really good sight hold, we push them out, we waste their time, and then the Echo Blast stops the plant. So it kind of makes sense that we're not seeing Echo in play. A nice shot there from Light is able to find the first kill, and it's that calculated aggression that we were talking about works very, very well for Artemis here, as Nomad is going to be the first off the board. So the flanks are wide open, as well as the fact Thermite off the board. Your one hard breacher in this situation that you desperately need to attack this site is going to be dead. So an crucial, very, very crucial kill there from Swag. And that's basically, you can kind of sit pretty if you are an Artemis right now.
Yeah, there's no way for Queen Yolamid to get into Piano without risking pretty much their entire lives. There's a castle barricade and the rest of the walls are covered with hard breach walls, or reinforced walls. Yeah, this is going to be really hard. If Sledge opens that wall, or opens that castle barricade, there's going to be all hell breaking loose. Bullets flying everywhere, but they're not going to, and Madeline actually not able to get anything, but Swag picks up 2! And that is going to be a huge defense by the side of Artemis, leaving Marmalade as another 1v5 scenario. Gets the first headshot onto Swag, gets a second! Light goes down, but that's not going to be enough. A 1v5 is a very tall order. And now Artemis will bring it to match point.
As we see there, just kind of making sure that crouch key from Wolfie is working at the end there. But just like that, Artemis now pushed on to match point on their map. So this is something you kind of have expected, but this is getting very, very close. And I think Queen Yolamid definitely have a chance here because Artemis, they can't go back upstairs to that very comfortable site. And on the other sites, they haven't looked as, I guess, together. There's been the downstairs kitchen site, which had to kind of come down to individual skill in a 4v2 situation, because I always say this, clutches are really good as a defending team, but it shows that there is something fundamentally wrong with that hold. If it comes down to a player's individual skill to win a round, that means something with your strat, something with your hold went wrong, because it should never come down to that. So although Artemis did win that round on kitchen, it was 100% reliant on Madeline and also the TK from the side of Queen Yolamid. So it wasn't the most convincing hold from them, but now they are put into a situation where they have to go back down to kitchen again, and maybe they got to change things up just a little bit here, because they cannot rely on that individual skill, as well as the fact they can't just rely on a TK happening again, because I'm 100% positive that will not happen again.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope it's not going to happen again.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
They're definitely going to be more careful about situations like that going forward, after it's already happened once. But if we take a look at the defensive setup, it seems like Artemis are actually setting up a little bit more toward the west side of the map rather than the east like they did last time. And a lot of that just comes down to the way Queen Yola mid decide to... Are we going to do this again? Are we going to spawn peek? Is that what's happening? Oh. Okay, first couple shots.
Don't.
Okay. Nothing happened. That's honestly just the best case scenario is just nothing happens at the end of that. But yeah, let's see what Queen Yola mid decide to do, where they decide to put their attacking pressure. Last time they actually had the Thermite open up both the west and east side of Kitchen, so they might go for a similar sort of play again.
Yeah, we saw basically the first push from Artemis, 100% east side. Second push from Artemis on this site was 100% west side, whereas Queen Yellow Mid is a little bit more spread out. You see kind of that upstairs control that they're trying to get because they do have that sledge and as well as the buck. So lots of soft destruction and also two sets of grenades on the side of the attack. So it looks like they probably want to go for a more vertical take, but based on kind of where they're positioned right now, it still looks like it's a fairly horizontal take, which is kind of questionable to me because you have the operators to perform a very, very strong vertical take, but you're not necessarily capitalizing on that. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens here as a little bit of a cold war right now as you are a minute in and well, kind of technically almost 2 minutes in or at the halfway point here because nothing's happened so far, and it looks like the setup from Queen Yellow Mid isn't setting up for anything to happen for quite some time right now.
Yeah, and regarding the operator picks, it's possible that they picked both Sledge and Buck for the frag grenades more than anything else. And
Yeah.
Animosity actually gets the first pick. But yeah, this site is one that lends itself to people playing anchors on site. They're playing behind bars. They're playing behind desks and all that. So frag grenades can really take those operators out if you can drone them out and you know where they are. So having 4 of them, actually, you don't even really need to drone them out. You can just sort of toss one every viable location, and you're bound to get 1 frag, and that's already a very nice trade. But we actually see half of this wall being left soft, and Light takes off the head of Animosity, bringing it down to a 4v4. Swag is trying to go for a long rotation, trying to find the Buck, who has been playing upstairs. She sees it. A nice patient play, able to get the kill, only losing half her life in the process, and rotating upstairs rather than back downstairs to keep the attackers guessing.
There's a really strong play there from Swag, just being extremely patient and just pushes that soft destruction completely off the board as you don't have that buck anymore, as well as the fact you don't have that sledge. So goodbye to the soft destruction and goodbye to the nades that we were talking about. So you have the Thermite Thatcher and Zofia still. So you have that duo of the Thermite and Thatcher, but the wall is already open. So it kind of comes down to where you're going to position and where you're going to try to get these frags. And unfortunately, well, they can't get their frags. And Artemis, they looked shaky at the start, but they bring it back. And it's going to be map number 1 going in favor of them. Semifinals of CCS. It's going to be 1-0 in favor of Artemis.
1-0 indeed, and just talking about that map, you know, it started out... One of the reasons why halfway through when we were doing the rehost, I was pinning Queen Yola mid to win, even though it's a defender-sided map and Artemis had yet to switch to their defensive side. It was because Artemis didn't really seem to have that extra cohesion that they actually brought together during their defensive half. You know, Artemis's victories for those last few rounds weren't necessarily because they were on defense, it was because they pulled together their communication, and that's something that is incredibly important to Siege and really bodes well for their chances in a best of 3, where it's basically an entire series of adaptation.
You
Yes.
beat me to it by a second. I was going to say they looked so good at the later half of that going into this best of 3 it's going to look really, really good for them. You beat me to it just by a second. Oh, I was...
But hey, great minds think alike, so...
Exactly. But we bring Brimstone back. Talking about great minds, Mr. Brimstone is here.
Oh, thank you.
Now he's going to tell us that he was about to say the exact same thing.
yeah. He was gonna say it.
Yeah, that's actually exactly it. No, but seriously, they seem to gel. Artemis did more and more as the rounds went on, and I mean that's what you can attribute to their success. Whereas Queen Yellow Mid, at no point did they seem to be operating as a team. Do you think? And maybe the addition of Marmalade had something to do with they're still trying to figure that out, and is it kind of growing pains there? Do you think that's what they need to know going into the next match? Okay, let's sort this out. Let's calm our comms and let's get it in order.
I think for Queen Yolomid, they were a lot stronger on defense. They looked really, really good on defense. I think if they can take that same mentality that they had on defense and bring it onto attack, which is a lot easier said than done, they could really just be extremely dominant on Villa. Villa is a defender-sided map, so if they just kind of capitalize on their defensive rounds and maybe take the half 5-1, 6-0 potentially, they could 100% take this away. But 4-2 on a map on Villa is not necessarily the best split considering how defender-sided it is. So Queen Yolomid has to make their rounds count, but I think they will do that simply because, yes, they looked shaky in attack. They didn't really have that cohesion that we've seen from them normally, but then you switch and look back at their defensive plays, they were just so much more together. They seemed a lot more organized. They seemed like they had kind of things in order just a little bit more. And maybe that's because they had more strats on defense of Cafe than they did on attack of Cafe. And now that they're going on to Villa, which is their map pick, I'm expecting to have strats across the board, and we're going to see that cohesion throughout the entire game. And I don't necessarily know if Artemis will have an answer. Yes, they kind of came out of the Cafe game 3-3 into the half, so that kind of shows they had an answer. But again, this is Villa. This is Queen Yolomid's map pick. We've seen just glimpses of this cohesion and this really strong play from Queen Yolomid on the map of Cafe. And I think on Villa, there's a much more likely chance for that to happen more often.
Tacking onto that real quick.
Go for it.
Just super quick. I don't think it was necessarily the roster swap to Marmalade that made any sort of difference here. I don't think it's necessarily growing pains with that, because it's mostly a sort of a team macro game sort of perspective. You know, there were misplays all across the board in terms of their communication toward their attacking side. That unless I don't know too much about the specifics of their team, but unless Fuya was a sort of leader type role, then I don't really see the roster swap being the issue here.
Well, we'll find out as the games progress. So we are one map down in our best of 3. That was Queen Yolomid taking on Artemis there. Artemis taking that map 7-4. But coming up, we have Villa, which is Queen Yolo's map. Hopefully they can come back and push this to a true best of 3. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
For a Thermite, but what a shot there from Light. He's able to find one of Bappers and finds 2 onto Animosity, and just like that, it's going to...
Yeah, when you're this low, utility, every bit of utility is super important, and having one caught out, and she's not going to be able to turn the corner, and let's just still work past it. And oh, Marmalade taking out Light at the very beginning, who tried to go from
the dock that would typically be there, and she is going to die. So it's going to be a 3v5.
Even more now as we're at a 5v2. One more kill going to Bappers. And now with 2 left on site, make that 1 as the vertical control in a 1v5. The defuser's going down. She has the element of surprise for now, but walks and turns at the...
Nice shot there from Light. Is able to find the first kill, and it's that calculated aggression. That was
huge defense by the side of Artemis, leaving Marmalade as another 1v5 scenario. Gets the first headshot onto Swag, gets a second. Who has been playing upstairs, she sees it. A nice patient play, able to get the kill, only losing half her life in the process, and rotating upstairs rather than back downstairs to keep the attackers guessing.
Talking about, so you have the Thermite Thatcher and Zofia still, so you have that duo of the Thermite and Thatcher, but the wall is already open, so it kind of comes down to where you're going to position.
Welcome back, everybody. We are getting set here for match number 2 of the semifinals of the first matchup of the day. This is Queen Yellow Mid going up against Artemis. This is CCSW. I'm Brimstone, and of course, I've got. Am I pointing to the right side? Yeah, I've got Azaraki up top. I'm just messing everything up. And then I've got Red Cube down below. It was a great first matchup. Artemis taking it on the map of their choice, which was Cafe, taking it 7-4. Now we move on to Villa, which is the map of choice for Queen Yellow Mid. Azaraki, why do you see this being the map of choice for Queen Yellow Mid? Why do they think that they can take it here?
I think a lot of it comes down to two things. First of all, Villa is pretty friendly to roamers, and I think that benefits Queen Yellow Mid's style, where they enjoy roaming, but they also like helping each other out during those roams and playing. We keep calling it basically just a hard and fast style, or maybe it's hard and loose, something like that. One of those three words, just combine, or two of them, take two of them, combine them. That's what I'm talking about. But the other thing is that I think we obviously don't have the specific information of this, but I think they've just been practicing it a lot. I think they have strats down.
Yeah. And I think this is something we've been talking about all day today, and this is finally the point where it comes to the surface, is the question of endurance for these teams. We have never seen them in a best-of-3 matchup in a league game setting. I'm 100% positive they've definitely had best-of-3s and scrims and things like that, but this is the moment for both of these teams where, okay, we just came off a game, and now we're going right back into a game, and that's something they have not done this entire season, and there could definitely be some hiccups and some changes and some issues here and there. Is it going to be 100% apparent? No. Could it be just issues in comms that we can never see? Probably, but it is just going to be something we should probably watch and just check out and see if maybe things that Artemis or Queen Yellow Mid has been doing this entire season start to fall apart simply due to the fact they're just not used to this constant playing, constant going back and forth, game after game kind of thing.
Now, could it have an effect, let's say, because we just had a quick break there. Normally when you see, let's say, live events or LAN events where they're setting up for multiple maps in a best-of-3, best-of-5, whatever it might be, sometimes you'll have maybe up to 15 minutes in between matches where a team can recollect, really have a good discussion, but they have 5 minutes to kind of just sit in the lobby together. They're not in the same room together, quickly talk about what just went down, what happened. And does that further your point of the endurance factor, that it's not really a break, you're just kind of turning around, cleaning yourself up and getting ready for the next map or map?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where a LAN setting and a team house setting that's a big reason why a lot of people want those. I don't think anybody in CCS has a team house. If somebody does, that's absolutely insane, and I would love an invite. But the thing is you're in a situation, you're not right there with your teammates. You're not at a LAN. You're not in a spot where you have time to talk about these things. You have this 5 minutes, and in those 5 minutes, instead of talking about your mistakes from last game, you probably want to be looking at what you want to do on your map pick or on not your map pick, depending on what team you're on. So it's really just not a lot of time that you have to adapt, but that's something in Siege you got to get used to. You need to be able to adapt on the fly, no matter how much time. Yes, it helps with 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, but even in the middle of a game, you need to be able to adapt at 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And that's something we need to see from here. And this is kind of just that exact idea, just at a much bigger scale.
Yeah. It does look like the teams are getting close to being ready here. We won't keep anyone any longer. This is going to be a really good one. Once again, they are going to Villa, this Queen Yellow Mid's map of choice, and they'll be taking on Artemis if you guys want to take it away from here.
Sure, and one thing I want to talk about is how the bans are going to work out, because last game we saw pretty weird bans from Queen Yellow Mid, and so one of them being the IQ, and that sort of makes sense because they played a lot of Valkyrie, and they actually had success with some runouts too. So definitely, we saw the effects of that ban there. But the mute ban, I feel like that wouldn't really have made much of a difference at all in the grand scheme of how that map played out. And so I'm wondering where they're going to orient their bans this time, and if they're going to try something else.
Yeah, the bans for Queen Yellow Mid were interesting, but they weren't apparent, if that makes sense, because you saw those bans and you were thinking, oh wow, that's interesting. That is something we haven't seen too much of. But in the midst of the game, there wasn't any situation where I was like, oh, they would have loved an IQ there, or oh, they would have loved a mute there, because it just didn't happen. So they were interesting bans. They weren't apparent bans. I don't necessarily know if they were the most effective bans, but again, there's always a hidden bias that us casters, we can't see, which is maybe they just absolutely hate mute and just want to get rid of mute, or maybe they absolutely just hate IQ and wanted to get rid of IQ. And for Queen Yellow Mid, those bans were absolutely perfect. So we don't know. We 100% can't just assume everything, but it just was a little bit odd to see interesting bans that didn't necessarily work out. So I'm kind of hoping that Queen YOLO mid maybe changes it up and goes for more typical things. But just as we're talking about that, we are going to be hopping right into the game here. Queen YOLO mid on attack first against Artemis on the map of Villa. This could decide who's going to be in your grand finals.
And speaking of the grand finals, they're going to be going up against either Victorious Gaming or Disrupt. And looking at it, Artemis have a winning record against both of those teams. Meanwhile, Queen YOLO mid, they lost versus Victoria's Secret, but they won against Disrupt. So I think Artemis might be favored in that upcoming matchup, which would end up being tomorrow. But let's turn our attention to the bans as they start coming in. We see an IQ ban again from Queen YOLO mid, and honestly, that makes, in my opinion, more sense on Villa than it does on Cafe. It still makes sense on Cafe, especially if you keep running the Valkyrie over and over. But on Villa, there's all of the floor between the first and second floor is destructible. That's really, really good and plays into IQ's hands. She can take out pretty much any sort of utility looking up through the floor. And Echo is very strong on Villa as well. So that ban sort of works both ways. And their second ban, Bandit. I always do that for some reason, but their second ban is going to be
like
Bandit.
the Shock Boys.
I see the lightning, and
both,
it's like...
Yeah, I 100%. I 100% understand.
But yeah, I like that more than the mute ban, because, again, you can't mute trick, but you can Bandit trick. And that's especially going to be important here, where there are a bunch of walls that will require a sort of trick, like the... what's the vault?
Bedroom?
Vault wall bedroom is...
Yeah.
Bedroom's really strong too, so we might end up seeing some impact grenades take the place of that.
Yeah, as well as the fact sometimes you actually see Bandit being banned out from the team that didn't ban IQ, because IQ is one of those operators that is really good at countering the Bandit. So you're just like, okay, we don't want to have to deal with a Bandit, so we got to just get rid of Bandit. But we're just seeing this, both the IQ and Bandit off the board. So on a map like Villa, these bans are a lot more typical than what we saw in Cafe, 100%, because they apply to so many more situations. Whereas we're talking about in the pregame, on the map of Cafe, the bans we saw, they didn't necessarily apply to pretty much anything. So it's going to be much more apparent here in this game, as we are also seeing this time around Artemis is going to be starting on defense, and Villa, like Cafe, is extremely defender-sided. Villa is the most defender-sided map in the pool as of right now. The exact numbers, the attackers win 41.97%, and the defenders only win 58.03%. I mean, they win not only, they win quite a lot, 58.03%. That is an incredible split. That is extremely defender-sided, and if you are Artemis and you come out 4-2, that's not actually something you really are proud of, because you want to come out 5-1, potentially 6-0 on a map like Villa.
Yeah, generally, one of the ways we see Villa go is basically the defenders win both of the second floor sites, of the downstairs sites, and then they win both of the second floors again. So yeah, we'll see. Again, Queen YOLO mid, Bappers through the drone hole, is going to take out Light, who is playing in bathroom, going for a bit of a roam play, but Wolfie is here to try to avenge her, sees a couple of drones, and is going to have to back out. So unfortunately, not much happening off of that, but she can't actually get the drones, and she's not backing off. Here comes the push from the attackers, and she's actually going to be able to get the kill. Wolfie takes out Animosity, who just got a little bit too aggressive in the chase. She had the information, but nothing else. Swag comes over to back her up as well, as Wolfie has some backup, and Swag takes another headshot, and the attackers, they haven't even made it to the right side of the map yet, and they're already facing so much resistance. 2 down, one of which was a Capitao, the other was a Nomad. That's a really good start.
Yeah, Capitao off the board, so much utility. Nomad off the board, you basically have flanks completely wide open. And on a map like Villa, where flanks can be extremely secretive, and you can kind of have that lone rat mentality that works extremely well, that hurts the attacking side, and you can see a complete rotate now. Losing that Capitao is basically forcing this attacking team into a completely different attack because, wow, what a shot there from Marmalade is able to take down Wolfie. So they have evened up the slate. So it is a 3v3, but the problem is you don't have the most valuable utility to make an effective push on this site. We saw they wanted to push from Bedroom. Now they're going to be pushing from Fireplace, and this kind of just changes the entire mindset of this attacking team because they don't have Capital boats to flame off Vault. They don't have Capital boats to just have some smoke cover. They just don't have a lot of utility in this situation. Yes, they can get the wall open with a Thermite charge and maybe some Thatchers, but if played correctly, you can maybe see an Impact Trick come over. I don't know if that did land. It did, and just like that, one Thermite is off the board. This is shaping up very, very well for the defending team because there's only 40 seconds left, and there's not much the attacking team has to work with.
And we see this sort of game between who can trick and who can get the impacts down. Ooh, doesn't look like that one will hit. So they do get open the wall, but they trade it out with his life as Aruz takes out Bappers. That's the Thermite down. He did his job, but it's still down to a 3v2. That's not where you want to be as the attackers peeking around the corner. Ashton gets a headshot off on Madeline, but 15 seconds left. That's not a lot of time, and they have a Legion to contend with. Anywhere they run, they're going to step into a goo mine or just get their head cut off as Swag gets one, Aruz gets the second. Artemis play that incredibly well, and off the back of a beautiful dual roam play, Artemis take the first round.
Yeah, it's really on, like you said, on the back of that roam play because not only did it allow basically utility to be completely wiped out, but it wasted so much time because the attackers then had to rotate their entire attack. Instead of pushing from Bedroom, instead of pushing from the backside, they realized we don't have close to the amount of utility we need to make an effective push from this area. We have to waste time, we have to walk off the building, rotate all the way back, and then push again. Not only does it just help with utility, it helps waste time. That was just a super strong roam from Artemis, and that's what they need a lot more because on a map like Villa, you have so much opportunity to just kind of run rampant and be everywhere and nowhere at the same time, especially with that Jackal ban being off on the board. It allows the roamers to be fairly comfortable and also extremely explosive if played correctly.
And one thing I also want to mention with the Bandit ban is that it leaves Maestro on the board, and Maestro is incredibly strong on this map. We already saw him play to pretty good effect on the last map in Cafe, but there are so many angles, so many long angles, so many peepholes that you can make. Again, a lot of soft destruction on this map, which is perfect for his Judge sidearms. So there's just a lot that Maestro can do, and I'm glad to see him played sort of both of these rounds so far. And I'm expecting it to happen just more often throughout the course of the entire game.
I think even throughout the course of the entire day, because I think a lot of people aren't maybe the most comfortable with Maestro, but just the gun he brings to the table, the ACOG he brings to the table, as well as the utility he brings to the table, he needs to be used. He's one of those operators that if on the board, you basically want him in your lineup every single time. In my opinion, I also think that works with Echo, but just not as intense because Echo is a little bit more of a comfort operator in terms of I might not be good with the drone, I might not be comfortable with his gun, but I'd just much rather have a Maestro that unfortunately doesn't deny the plant as well, but also has a little bit more utility in terms of where the cameras can be, how many cameras can be placed, as well as the fact just has a better gun. So I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen as much Echo play, but I'm glad that we're seeing a little bit more Maestro play just because how strong he really is. As well as the fact, like you said, on Villa, so many long angles, so many different places you can be sitting with that gun. That's basically a one-way angle that an attacker cannot win, and that's probably what Artemis is trying to capitalize on right now. As we see, the first kill is going to actually go in favor of Queen Yellow Mid. Bappers taking down I think that was Light, and Wolfie going down right behind her as Automay sneaks up those red stairs, and that's going to be your Mozzie and your Jaeger off the board. Basically, your two deep roamers immediately dealt with by Queen Yellow Mid, and that's a really solid start because it's still have a minute and 50 seconds to work with. As well as Animosity gets another kill.
Yeah, Animosity covering her teammate incredibly well, able to pick her up too. So that leaves us with a 5v2, even though there's a little bit of a low health bar on Capitao. But Madeline has something to say about that, peeking around the corner, getting two, confirming the first one that she downed. And that is going to bring us to a 3v2 instead. Impact Trick, it does succeed. Okay, so they don't manage to get that wall open, but Bappers still peeks around the corner and takes her out. Madeline will flank around the bathroom. Gets the defuser down too, so she has control of that, but it's not going to be enough as Ashton is already there, ready to refrag, and that was just Queen YOLO mid covering each other incredibly well. They had the information. Anytime there was a kill, there was an immediate refrag. Sometimes, in that one case on stairs, she got the refrag from a down. The kill wasn't even confirmed yet. So I love that sort of angle holding and communication from Queen YOLO mid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the time, Artemis starts to slip up. It relies 100% on an individual skill. There's not really a good recovery system for Artemis as of yet. And it's just kind of their recovery system right now is Madeline. Because every time they're in a position where it's a 1vx and X is greater than 1, it's Madeline who is that last one standing. And she got close there. She did get the diffuser down, but I think maybe should have played that just a little bit differently. Once you see that diffuser down, instead of pushing into that wide angle in bedroom when there could be potentially be a couple attackers staring you down, maybe play it back behind that shield that you had in Astronomy and just waiting for someone to go pick up that diffuser because they need that diffuser if they want to confirm that round. So that then results in basically all the attackers funneling in towards your line of sight, and that could have been a round win for Madeline. But again, I'm just a caster and someone who looks at the game and speaks about it, so I could easily be 100% wrong. There could have been a situation that I didn't know about going through the comms of these players, and that's exactly why Madeline pushed in through that bathroom. But the thing I need to see from Artemis that I think they're lacking is, again, that recovery system when they are down in man count. They have been relying on that advantage in man count and that advantage in positioning late in the round so much that once Queen YOLO mid gets the man advantage early, or they are in a spot where they can get a man advantage very quickly, it seems like Artemis seems to fall apart.
It seems like the adaptation from Artemis so far is to play this pulse that our beautiful observer has just highlighted. But the pulse will basically be able to play the first floor, or sorry, the basement, which is pretty big because the last round we saw Queen YOLO mid, they got into the building very easily and very quickly. They flushed out the first floor, they went up the stairs, and they were able to just basically dismantle the roaming duo that Artemis had. In this case, if you have a Pulse who's playing all the way downstairs, ooh, really nice. I don't normally see people drone there, but they must have seen that there was a Pulse, known that Pulse would probably play in the basement, so she drove her drone up there, but wasn't expecting Pulse to literally be right in front of the door when she did. So really good play by Light, and that's part of the reason why this Pulse in the basement is so strong, because it's so far away from the rest of the sites, but it's still so important because the first floor is that important.
Yeah, and there's two good counters to this Pulse as Wolfie is able to find one on the Automate. It's going to be, again, Capitão and Sledge off the board. That's a lot of utility that you are losing very early on when you are on the side of Queen YOLO mid. But when you think of that Pulse and the positions that Pulse is playing, there are two really good counters that come to mind. IQ and Jackal, both of which are banned. That's why you're seeing this Pulse in types of positions that you don't typically see. He's kind of just running around in that downstairs area and is able to find kills from it. If you have that IQ, if you have that Jackal, it makes the clearing of this roamer, of this Pulse, a lot easier. And unfortunately, the attacking team doesn't have that luxury, and it's showing right here.
Yep, and now time is ticking down. 1 minute and 17 seconds left. Vapors actually, despite having a soft wall right nearby, decides to open up this bathroom, this little bathroom X-Kairos here. And that'll help flush out some of the angles and make sure they can't get flanked upon if they were to attack through bedroom. And it seems like they're going to be doing exactly that, but they're missing out on some big hard destruction. They're going to hard breach. They're going to have to pull Vapors all the way back to the bedroom in order to get that wall open, unless they're trying to challenge this angle here as Marmalade pushes right in, getting quite a bit of map control and actually taking swag off on the rotate. She sees one out of the corner of her eye, not quite able to get the kill yet, but it's still a really good start for the side of Queen YOLO mid to try to bring it back in their favor.
Yeah, typically you see someone playing Deer in the other site that kind of denies Marmalade from running inside. Unfortunately, Artemis did not have that, and just like that, it's going to be a 3v3 as Ashton is able to find one on the Madeline, and that's basically your two primary site operators, your big boys, as you can call them, Maestro and Kaid off the board, but you still have that smoke, and you still have two very valuable guns and utility in terms of the Jaeger and the Pulse. Pulse sitting in Astronomy with the smoke is going to be good support, but is also going to be dead. Arus is there to get the refrag immediately, though, but Thatcher is lurking once again in bathroom. I don't necessarily know if Arus is expecting it, and she is. She's able to find two, and just like that, she's able to find three, and shuts it all down. Artemis winning round number 3. And again, it's on the back of individual skill, but it's kind of working as Arus finds a 3K at the very end there.
I think there's definitely a miscommunication during the later stages of that map, because Queen YOLO mid didn't really see where Aruz was. There were two people who walked into that room trying to figure out where the smoke was playing, but they looked the wrong way. Whoever was pushing through the bathroom looked down the stairs. Whoever was pushing in through the main rotation just wasn't looking in the corner where she hadn't moved from. So that tells me that maybe they don't have a call out prepared for that, or maybe there was just a miscommunication in general. But that's definitely a position that you want to have called out so that people can pre-fire that angle. And that would prevent a situation like that from happening where one player can just tear through three members of the team back to back to back. The first one should really be calling that out and letting the rest of the team sort of play off of that.
Yeah, most of the time in almost every level of play, when you see a individual player get 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3 back to back to back, it's either just poor refrag ability or mispositioning and miscallouts. And I think right there, it was a good, I guess, idea to try to get that refrag. But like you said, there was just obviously some miscommunications there because everybody just ran into the exact room and just did not look in the spot that they should have been looking. And that's just reliant on communication with your team. And unfortunately, I think Queen Yolomid definitely had some issues that round, and it showed with the fact that Aruz was able to find 1, 2, 3 back to back to back, and there was basically no contestation on pushing her out of that position or even getting the kill onto her. But you now are in a position now, round 4, and you are going back to the site that is arguably the most viable on Villa. It is probably the most comfortable spot for Artemis to play. They have won this site once before. And now with the lead, this is definitely something they want to add on top of because, like I said, 4-2 half on the map of Villa isn't actually the best thing in the world. Yes, you have the advantage, but this is so defender-sided, you kind of want to have that 5-1. And that's what Artemis needs to be aiming for right now.
I like this aggressive play by Wolfie here. On the stairs, she's got a deployable shield to cover her rotation if she wanted, but yeah, that gets shot down immediately. So I really like that play by Marmalade to make sure that they don't have that. Now they can just smoke it out and make sure that she has nowhere to run. The stairs are being covered from both sides now. Doesn't look like she can rotate out. No, she's just still there. She is pulling the Doc over to try to help, and Swag is actually going to be able to get one. The air jab is going to put her on the floor, but not going to confirm any sort of kill. Trying to ping to get her to move over to the correct spot, but Animosity is right there waiting for her, and Animosity is going to be able to take down the kill. That's why she didn't move into the sights of the Doc for the heal, and that prompts Swag to basically just rotate back. There's not much more she could have done there, but Light does get one more from a pretty big flank over on the other half of the map toward the east side.
Fortunately, that impact trick is going to miss, so it opens up the doors and opens up quite a lot of angles for the attacking team to work with, and they have a minute to work with it. Yeah, they might not have the man advantage, but they have a lot of time to even things out here, as shots are just being riddled out from the Maestro, and they actually are going to hit, as Madeline is able to find one onto Ashton, as Thermite tries to get another, but Madeline's able to find two, and just like that, their round is over. Artemis with round number 4. This is looking very, very good for them, and Queen Yolomid, in my opinion, are probably getting a little bit scared. This is their map pick, and they had just 2 fairly convincing rounds from Artemis shoved down their throat.
Yeah, it was Queen Yolomid's map pick, and we expected it to be their map pick because they had some attacker strategies. That's really, basically either attacker strategies or strategies for the 2 first floor sites on defense. So if they're not finding success on their attack, winning one round through the first attacker rotation is okay, but you definitely want to do better.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what they can pull out for the defense because they're going to have to win at least 3 rounds in a row on their defense to basically come back from this. Now, talking about, I want to point out just Marmalade's beautiful headshots on Maestro, and we've already talked about Maestro's Alda and how good that is, and if you needed any proof, there it was. Just a clean 2K, both of them headshots, just a very strong operator in general.
Yeah, that gun is just so good. As simple as that. It is such a good gun. 71 bullets, and it just hits like a truck. There's not much more you need. And like you said with the fact that we're expecting Queen Yolomid to be a little bit stronger on attack, if they're not stronger on attack, the next thing that we are expecting from them is to be extremely strong on the secondary bomb sites when they get to defense. So when this half ends, and say Queen Yolomid is down 4-2 or 5-1, you're then looking at them and saying, okay, you guys are down, but the way you can bring this back is being extremely convincing on a bomb site like Artemis is on right now. Those secondary bomb sites that we've seen in CCSW have not worked well for almost any team. And there's still a lot of time for that to show for Queen Yellow Mid, because there's no way they just lose the game and we never get to see them on defense. But it's just going to be a little bit more hard when the round count is severely against them and the pressure is on them to perform, because if potentially we could see a match point fairly quickly here if just one round on the attacking side is won and this half does end 5-1 for Artemis, it could just be easily match point, and then Queen Yellowman are put in this situation where they need to perform on literally every single site no matter what. They have to be 100% perfect, but that's super far into the future, and this is only round 5 and there's still a lot of game to be played. As we see, Animosity is actually going to lose that out, but it's going to be a direct... No, she wins it out, technically. It's going to be a direct trade back-to-back there as Swag goes down for Animosity, and another kill there for Wolfie, though. So it's going to be putting the man advantage in favor of the defense, as well as the fact that Zofia and Sledge, once again, your first 2 operators off the board. So much utility is getting lost for Queen Yolomid so early on.
And this is basically how you want to start attacking these downstairs sites, or start defending these downstairs sites, is basically have one of these roamers, like Wolfie has been doing, up here in the second floor, denying as much space and denying as much time as possible. And she's doing exactly that. Already gotten a couple of picks, and now we... already gotten 1 pick, and now we're seeing her buy so much time as Autumn May is forced to go search her out, but the attackers only have 3 members on their team, so that means that Autumn May is up here alone. She is... Oh, it's a 1v1 situation, so she could very well lose this if she doesn't expect where she is. And Wolfie, right around the corner, takes the headshot. Autumn May, unfortunately, peeking around the corner while crouched super slowly. That means that Wolfie could see her gun before she could see any part of Wolfie, and that brings us down to a 2v3. And that entire, minute that Autumn May was out of commission trying to search for this roamer, she got nothing to show for it, and that's how strong this sort of roam position can be.
Yeah, and on a secondary bomb site like this, like you said, this roam game is extremely important because it allows the defense to be as comfortable for as long as possible on site. And then it forces the attackers into a position where they don't even have much control of the map, and then they just have to force bodies and force things to try and make site and to try to make that push on the site effective. And it's going to be very, very hard. As you only have a Thatcher and Habana, you don't have really pretty much any utility. Yes, you can open up a couple angles, but all the X-Kairos have been used, and it's just kind of... It hurts a little bit. But Bappers, that's also going to hurt Arus, as Arus gets her head taken off. And it's going to be a 2v2, so it makes things just a little bit more doable, but you only have 5 seconds left, and that diffuser is down, and the game... Well, not the game, but the round is over, as Madeline gets the confirming kill with the shotgun just sitting prone. Actually, that was quite interesting, just sprinting right into the face of the Thatcher and making sure that her DPI button is working properly. But just like that,
I like how she said no in chat because she knew the replay was going to be a couple of misses.
But 4-1 now, going into potentially, well, not potentially, the last round of the half. This is, again, a map where 4-2, it's good. Yes, you have the advantage, but 5-1 is basically the ideal situation you want to come out of on defense on Villa. And it looks like Artemis is shaping up to do exactly that. So Queen Yoloman has to either find some answers this round or find a lot of answers going on to defense.
Yeah, very comfortable position to be 5-1 up because, again, like Red Cube mentioned earlier, it puts so much pressure on the defenders. Even if you say... You sort of think in your mind, oh, the attackers did this, or the other team did this when they were on defense, we can do it too. When you're already down that much, and your second side is the defensive side, then you have that extra pressure on you, because you know that if you make mistakes during 2 rounds, it's over, and you just lose the map. So that can put a lot of pressure on whoever defends second on this map, and in this case, that's Queen Yola mid. So hopefully we can see them get a good, solid round here on attack. And this is the site where they managed to do it last time. This is the site that they won on attack. This is their only victory on attack so far. So let's see if they can replicate that success, or if Artemis can sort of shift their defensive setup to try to bring something that Artemis might not be, or sorry, Queen Yola mid might not be expecting.
Yeah, in the game of Siege, you analyze your mistakes, and you make corrections to your failures in that round as wow. Swag. That was really close to actually working. But again, calculated aggression is something we talked about last time around in Cafe, and yes, they are up 4-1, so I'm not as mad at that run out as I was with the Cafe run out, but it's still a little bit questionable. But that was actually very close to working very well for Artemis, but unfortunately you do lose your Kaid extremely early on. That's going to allow the site just to be a little bit less guarded and a little bit less protected, maybe allowing the attackers to make kind of a execution on the site earlier on. But we're just going to have to wait and see. And like I said, you make corrections in your failures in the game of Siege, and this is a site that Artemis failed on. Let's see if they've adapted enough and if they've made those corrections quick enough so that they can bring this one back. It's not a good start for them as they do have the man disadvantage very early on, but well, again, like I said, it was kind of just an aggressive play that they probably just want to try and go for.
One thing I like from Queen Yola mid as sort of their adaptation is that they're not even challenging in a place where roamers could potentially pick them off. They're forcing everything into this bedroom take, and that means that whoever's playing all the way over on the aviation side of the map isn't really going to be very effective, and Marmalade will get another headshot onto Light. Brings it back, however, as Madeline takes out Animosity, so a 4v3, but still in a pretty good spot for the attackers, especially considering, again, they don't really have to worry about these roamers. They just need to cover angles. They know they can't be flanked, so Wolfie here needs to try to get back to site, but this is a position that's most likely going to be covered, and speaking of, Autumn May is going to be able to take her head off. Wolfie goes down, but the two remaining are Smoke and Maestro, and if there are any people who can clutch around, it's probably these two.
Yeah, 100%. They have the utility, and they also, well, Maestro has the guns, Smoke has the utility, and this could be very helpful for them, but Ashton puts it into a 4v1 situation, and Madeline, once again, it's always her in these clutch situations. She gets so close certain times. Could this be the time where she clutches it up? Unfortunately not, and just like that, Queen Yolo mid going into the half are able to squeak out a round right before the side switch. And that could easily be the confidence they need to go onto the defense side of this defender-sided map and maybe start taking this game away from Artemis.
Yep, and we see a 4-2 half. So the 4 goes to Artemis on their defense, and that's sort of the status quo for this map. Because, you know, we keep talking about it, but basically, you win the 2 standard second floor bomb sites, and you lose the first floor one. Interestingly enough, we saw the same scoreline, but play out a little bit differently for Artemis, as they actually did win their first floor site, which was supposed to be an off-site, but they lost trophy twice. So that's a bit of an interesting thing there, but functionally they still end up with a 4-2. And now here's the big question though. Queen Yolo mid, we talked about the fact that they picked this map, meaning they probably have either really good attacking strats so that they can break open the defenses for the upper floors, or they have really good defensive strats for the secondary sites. And the fact that they're going to kitchen first is pretty indicative that they have a plan for this. I'm really excited to see what that plan is. So far, looking at their setup, nothing looks too strange. A lot of it, you know, you definitely want to play the vertical game. You want to make sure the attackers can't get a lot of space here onto trophy and statuary. So far, it's looking pretty standard, but I'm going to really look at these roamers to see what they do to open up this site.
Yeah, and going to kitchen first, not only is it just a confidence thing and shows like, hey, Queen Yola mid, we are extremely confident on this site, but it also kind of throws off the attack, because if you're an attacking team on Villa, you're expecting, okay, first defense is going to be upstairs no matter what. I am going to bring the operators for an upstairs push. And then you drone out and you realize, wait a second, they're going to kitchen. It's a little bit, it causes some operator picks and might not be as viable, as well as the fact it's just an element of surprise that could bode well for the defensive team, and I think maybe that could happen here for Queen Yola mid, but I think it's more of a confidence thing. Like we said earlier on, you need to get really good at these secondary sites on Villa if you want to take these defending rounds convincingly. And Queen Yola mid starting out on this site, it shows that they're prepared to take these sites convincingly, and they're prepared to play on these secondary bomb sites almost the entire game, as we are going to be seeing trades coming out, and actually it's going to be going in favor of Artemis. So your 2 roamers off the board extremely early on. The roam game, like you were talking about, is extremely important, and unfortunately, well, they are both dead very quickly.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate start, especially not only are they dead, but they didn't really buy much time off of that. Beautiful C4, however. Ashton takes out a ruse, so that will bring the scores a little bit more even. But yeah, I would have definitely wanted to see the defenders buy more time, because even if they both die without getting a trade, if they buy enough time that there's only 45 seconds left in the map, that's still something the defenders can really work with in order to bring the map into their, or bring the round into their favor. But they didn't even do that, so not a great start for their showing in this substandard bomb site. And you were talking about how operator picks might be switched up or might be mismatched if you go downstairs first. And I think part of that we're seeing with the Thermite, you definitely would rather have a Hibana, because with this site, it's hard to walk up to the reinforced walls in order to get them open, but Swag will take down one as Ashton goes down. A few more bullets flying back and forth, and it seems like, sorry, Marmalade. No, it's Madeline is down on the floor over there by the diffuser. And finally, we're going to see her get taken out. There were a bunch of pings, and Autumn saw the foot for a while, but finally confirms that kill. But Wolfie trades it back out immediately, and then we're down to the Maestro as the last one left once again, this time in a 1v2. Alda's not going to work for her as she gets pre-fired. Really good drone work, we have to assume, by the side of Artemis.
Yeah, right there, we just saw the Meisters get absolutely shattered. It was just great intel on the side of the attacking team. And in a situation where maybe that intel isn't available for the attacking team, you actually might put your money on that Maestro for winning that out. Both of the attackers are extremely low in health. Maestro has 71 bullets, has a really good gun, and was in a fairly good position. You can maybe easily see that go in favor of Queen Yellow Mid. But, well, it did not, and now 1 round away from match point is the side of Artemis, and also we are going to be seeing Queen Yellow Mid go back to a more typical bomb site, as they aren't going to get stubborn. They're not going to go down to Kitchen twice in a row. They instead are going to go to Mr. Old Reliable and get comfortable in Aviator games.
Still, that's definitely... It shows us that even though they were confident enough to pick that site first, their strat still wasn't particularly there, and they weren't able to win out the sites. So at this point, they're pushed into a corner where they have to win not only these 2 upstairs sites, but they also have to win one of their downstairs sites. And after already losing one, it's basically a tough order. So we'll see what they can do next time around to basically adapt once they're down there. But even if they were to get there, they have to win these next 2 rounds. Well, they don't have to. They need to win one of these next 2 rounds at least before they can go back down there without forcing match point. But Echo is the call, and Echo's pretty strong on this map. So I think we might be able to see Queen Yellow Mid take a defense in their favor, especially since we've been talking about this quite a bit, but the 2 second floor sites are pretty defender-sided.
Yeah, and this is the first time we've actually seen Echo in play all day today, if I'm not mistaken. I could be 100% wrong, but I think this is the first time we're seeing an Echo in play. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how Queen Yellow Mid uses the Echo, but I think more importantly, how Artemis responds to an Echo in play. Because if they don't have an IQ on the board, and they don't necessarily have anybody to get rid of those Echoes, well, actually, you do have a Thatcher, my apologies, but still, if you're not expecting an Echo in play and they haven't droned out properly, and maybe they don't even know there is an Echo in play, it could definitely spell out quite a bit of problems for Artemis, because everybody knows just how strong Echo can be if left alive late in the round.
On the bright side, and I think part of the reason why we haven't been seeing a lot of Echoes so far, is that a lot of these matches haven't even gotten as far as a team planting the diffuser. A lot of these rounds, haven't really required that. They've just been sort of in these gunfights, and to his credit, Echo does have an ACOG as well, so that lets him fare pretty well in these gunfights. On top of that, I think seeing the Echo here, I believe we're going to see a bit more of an aggressive Echo style, which is something that's pretty rare because he's so useful in those later stages of a round. But we already see that one Echo drone is already pulled up in this 90 hallway, so I think he might be trying to... Oh, never mind. They actually just take out Marmalade right away without any concussive blasts. So I was expecting the sonic waves from the Echo drones to assist the roamers and play a bit more aggressively that way, but no, the roamer just got taken out.
Yeah, I was expecting with a Echo Drone that deep out of sight, you expect the Echo Drone to either be spitting a bunch of information to the roamer or helping the roamer physically by sonic booming the attacker. And unfortunately, well, it did not happen, and I don't exactly know, maybe just miscommunication there or something, but it is brought down to a 3v2 now, make it a 5v2, not 3v2, 5v2. As we're going to see Light actually also, no, Madeline's going to be going for the plant. Light's able to find a 3, and just look at that, it's going to be a 5v1. It looks like Artemis is going to be put on to match point, and just like that, they are. A flawless round for them on a site you really, really have to win.
Yeah, not only did Artemis win this site, but they did it flawlessly too. They did not
Yeah.
lose a single person. All their utility was on point. So that spells disaster for Queen Yola mid, because not only are they on match point now, but they're on game point. Artemis already won the first round on Cafe. They won it 7-4. It looked pretty convincing once they switched to defense. And now on Villa, they seem to be running away with it. We might be even looking at a 7-2 scoreline as Queen Yola mid are going back to the first floor. So after losing Dining Room Kitchen and then losing Aviator, they don't actually go to Trophy, which is sort of the second most viable site here. They're really banking on this first floor kitchen site to be their bread and butter. It seems to be what they've practiced a lot, but we'll see what they can do to make it work for them this time.
In the game of Siege, it's never too late to start over again until the game is over. So maybe that's kind of what we're seeing here from Queen Yola mid. Maybe they just are saying, you know what? Hard reset. We are down by 4 rounds. We need to win. We need to be perfect these next 4 rounds to force an overtime. It is never too late to start over in the game of Siege, and that's exactly what I'm hoping is going through the heads of the Queen Yola mid players. I'm hoping there's not too much just, oh, this game's kind of over thing, and that can kind of happen in a game like this when this is your map and basically you've been pinned up against the wall the entire time. But let's hope it's not a famous final scene for Queen Yola mid. Let's hope they can stay alive, maybe push this into an overtime, and could easily send this, well, I wouldn't say easily, but could potentially send this into a map 3. But we are just going to have to wait and see. I like the confidence from Queen Yola mid going back to this site. I really do like it, and it shows that no matter the situation they're going to be put in, they're just going to play their game and they're going to try to play it as well as possible. So we're just going to have to kind of see exactly what they've changed from the last time around or what they're going to be doing slightly differently. One thing that is a major change and not a slight difference is the fact that instead of a smoke, you're actually going to be using an alibi instead. So maybe pointing towards more aggression and more fragging power with the gun that is the MX4 Storm that is very, very good as a roamer and just kind of running around and being in the face of the attacking team.
I like the way she's playing the alibi too. I said it pretty much since she was released. Okay, already getting killed. Every time I decide to talk about someone, it just
It's the
the
caster's
opposite
curse.
happens. But
It's the caster's curse.
But yeah, she was holding on to her prismas, and I think that's the way to go. If you're playing a roam style of alibi, you want to hold on to them so that when you rotate out of a position, you can put one down in the right behind you, and that gives your teammate even more information than if you were to use them for spawn peeks. But already firing back and forth as Light pushes right onto site, she gets 3. 2 of them were headshots toward the very end, and now Marmalade is the only one left for the side of Queen Yola mid. This is match kill. She needs to force a 1v3 right now as Marmalade. She'll pick up 1, but won't be able to get the second. Light with a 4-kill round takes Artemis to victory, and that means that Artemis, we're going to see him in the grand finals tomorrow.
Oh, if you're an Artemis fan, you are extremely happy, and if you're a Queen Yola mid, you're probably a little bit sad. But something we have to talk about is Artemis. They've been dominant throughout the regular season. Going into playoffs, the #1 seed, going up against the #4 seed, you kind of are expecting them to be the favorites in this game. Would it be as dominant as we saw, a 7-2 on the last map, a 2-0 in total map count? I wasn't expecting that, but I mean, Artemis, they came to play today. They started out very slow. They had some issues on Cafe, and then after those issues were brushed off, I mean, it's like stopping a train. It was almost impossible for Queen Yola mid, and just solid play all around from Artemis. But unfortunately for Queen Yola mid, their season's not over as they still are in the 3rd place game, but their chances of getting to the grand finals is, well, regrettably over.
Definitely. Fantastic match. Obviously not the outcome that Queen Yola mid was looking for. I think they even despite the loss, I think they wish they probably could have done even a bit better. Is this, in my opinion, and I'm not pinning this on anyone in particular, but given how well in the first map Animosity did, coming out with only 3 kills in that second map, as well as overall for the day, I would have expected a little bit more from Autumn May as well, and I'm not by any means pinning the loss on her. It's just kind of one of those pieces. But she's a big part of that team, and at least I feel that there was room for improvement definitely on her day today. But let's talk about Light. Light was lights out for her team today. Just fantastic play, capped off by was it a 4K in the final?
4K,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. Just a cap, and once again, on the flip side, no one player lost it for Queen Yola Mid, and Light didn't necessarily win it, but I feel that she was at the forefront of what her entire team was doing. Is Artemis now the absolute favorite to take it in the grand finals tomorrow, do you think, Azaraki?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Going into the playoffs, I was sort of looking at them and Victoria's Secret the most, and then Queen Yola Mid was this sort of like, I almost want to say dark horse because their past few weeks haven't been great, but they definitely showcased that they have the skill to compete. But after this sort of performance, again, I talked about earlier that Artemis have like Wolfie, Light, and Madeline, who all on different days step up huge for their team, and we even see like Aruz and Swag get plenty of kill. I think Aruz and Swag are more the like consistent fraggers rather than the I get the most kills in this game, as the rest of the 3 have shown. But yeah, Light stepped up this time. I think tomorrow we're gonna see a different player step up. It might be
Yeah.
Wolfie, it might be Madeline, but either way, I think their team cohesion in general is really good. So yeah, I think I'm willing to say that they're going to take tomorrow as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
the players. I'm sorry, but the players on Artemis, every single one of them is explosive in their own way. You look at Swag and you look at Arus, and they're a lot more consistent. They're kind of like your foundation as a team, and it allows players like Madeline, it allows players like Light, it allows players like Wolfie to be extremely comfortable in their aggressive roles. Because if they die, they're like, all right, we died, maybe didn't do the best, but I am relying on 2 extremely good players of Arus on Swag who are maybe sitting on site or who are just kind of backing me up on an attack. So it's just a whole team circle that works very, very well for Artemis, and it showed here once again. We say this every single week with Artemis. It's become a thing where every time they play, we come out of the game and we're like, oh my God, they're so good. Or, oh my God, they didn't show anything and they're still winning, blah, blah, blah. But it's turning into a situation where we have to appreciate the fact that Artemis, they have to be the favorites going into the finals. It's going to be interesting to see who they're playing against and what the team they're playing against is going to bring, because Queen Yola Mid, they played a good game. There was obviously some hiccups here and there. There was some issues here and there, but overall, Queen Yola Mid played extremely well. And now that you're going to have the Disrupt versus Victoria's Secret game, whoever wins there is going to have to play incredibly well if they want a chance at taking down the giants that are Artemis.
Yeah, well said. So that match over with, Artemis taking it 2-0 over Queen Yola Mid. But coming up, we are going to go to a quick break. We will be featuring Victoria's Secret taking on Disrupt Gaming for the second, I guess tied for second and third seed, taking on each other. Find out who will go to the grand finals tomorrow. See everyone in just a few minutes.